Tonight, you return once more to the wandering library that drifts quietly above the world. You step through its tall wooden doors and into the soft hush of lantern light. Shelves stretch endlessly around you, gently shifting, as though remembering your footsteps. A single book rests on a pedestal, bound in pale blue cloth. Its cover is warm to the touch, like it has been waiting for you. In delicate script, you read its title, Alexandria, A Midnight by the Sea. The Mediterranean night wraps around you like silk as you begin your walk along the harbor of Alexandria. The year is 48 BCE, and the city sleeps under a canopy of stars more brilliant than any you've ever seen. The Pharos lighthouse stands in the distance, its beacon fire casting a warm, flickering glow across the dark waters. The light pulses gently, rhythmically, like the heartbeat of the city itself. Your footsteps echo softly on the limestone path. Each step is deliberate, unhurried. There is no need to rush, no destination that cannot wait. The gentle lapping of waves against the harbor wall creates a rhythm as old as time itself, a metronome that measures eternity in small, patient increments. Small fishing boats bob peacefully at their moorings, their wooden hulls creaking with each subtle movement of the water. The sound is familiar, comforting, the voice of wood and rope speaking to the sea. The air is cool and carries the scent of salt and distant incense from the temples. It mingles with the smell of sun-warmed stone, now cooling in the darkness, and the faint perfume of night-blooming flowers in distant gardens. Palm fronds rustle overhead, their shadows dancing in the moonlight, creating patterns of dark and light on the pale stone beneath your feet. You pause to watch the reflection of the lighthouse fire shimmer across the harbor's surface, breaking into 1,000 golden fragments with each passing ripple. The water is dark, nearly black, but where the light touches it, it becomes liquid gold, liquid amber, flowing and reforming in endless variation. The white marble of the harbor buildings glows pale blue in the moonlight, as if lit from within by some gentle, ethereal source. The stone seems almost luminous. Most windows are dark, their shutters closed against the night. But here and there a lamp burns where a scholar works late into the night, or where a merchant tallies the day's accounts, or where a mother tends a sick child. These small lights are like stars that have fallen to earth, finding homes in the windows of Alexandria. You continue walking, your pace unhurried, your breathing slow and deep. There is nowhere you need to be, no appointments to keep, no obligations to fulfill. This time is yours, and you spend it in the simple act of placing one foot before the other, of moving through this ancient space. Time moves differently at this hour, stretching and softening like warm wax. Minutes might be hours, or hours might be minutes. It doesn't matter. The vast harbor opens before you, its dark water extending toward infinity. Beyond it, the infinite darkness of the sea meets the star-scattered sky at an invisible horizon. You cannot tell where one ends and the other begins. It is all one vast darkness, punctuated by points of light. The stars are extraordinary tonight. The Milky Way stretches across the heavens like a river of light, like a road leading to mysteries beyond human comprehension. Individual stars shine with an intensity you've never experienced in your own time. There are no city lights here to dim them, no electric glow to wash out their ancient fire. They burn as they have burned for countless ages, as they will burn for countless ages to come. A night watchman passes, his staff tapping against the stone in a steady rhythm. He nods a quiet greeting, his face weathered and kind beneath the hood of his cloak. His lantern swings gently as he walks, casting moving shadows that dance across the walls and pavement. The light advances and retreats, in time with his steady gait. His footsteps fade into the distance, growing softer and softer until they are absorbed completely by the sound of the waves. And you are alone again with the night and the sea. The limestone beneath your feet is still warm from the day's sun. The stone has absorbed hours of heat and now releases it slowly back into the cool night air. Each block was cut and placed by human hands, part of the grandest city of the ancient world, built with vision and ambition and remarkable skill. You are walking where Cleopatra walked, where scholars and sailors and merchants from every corner of the known world have passed. Your footsteps join the countless footsteps that have come before, adding your brief presence to the long history of this place. The waves continue their eternal conversation with the shore. Each wave arrives, speaks its piece in a susurrus of foam and water, and withdraws, making room for the next. The conversation never ends. It has continued every moment of every day and night since the harbor was built, and it will continue long after these stones have crumbled and returned to the sea from which they were wrested. In the distance, you can hear the faint call of night birds, gulls settling on the water, or perhaps an owl hunting in the gardens above the harbor. The sounds are faint, almost dreamlike, as though they come from very far away, or from another world entirely. The beacon of Pharos sweeps its light across the water, a steady guardian watching over ships and dreamers alike. The great fire at the top of the lighthouse has been burning since sunset, and will continue burning until dawn. It is tended by keepers who understand their sacred duty, to keep the light alive, to guide the lost home, to stand as a promise in the darkness that harbor and haven are near. The smoke from the fire rises straight up into the still air, a dark column against the star-filled sky, carrying sparks upward like prayers ascending to the gods. You pause again, this time to lean against the low wall that edges the harbor walk. The stone is smooth under your hands, worn by weather and time, and the touch of countless other hands that have rested here. The wall is pleasantly cool. You look out across the water, watching the play of light and shadow, the gentle movement of the moored boats, the distant gleam of the lighthouse. Everything is exactly as it should be. Everything is in its place. The world is ordered and peaceful, and yours to witness. A breeze rises from the sea, carrying with it the smell of deep water, of salt and distance and mystery. It touches your face gently, like a blessing. Your hair stirs in the breeze. Your clothing moves softly against your skin. The palm fronds overhead rustle more loudly for a moment, speaking in their ancient language, then fall silent again as the breeze passes. This is Alexandria at midnight. This is the beginning of your walk through the ancient city, through its streets and gardens, its temples and markets, its public spaces and hidden corners. But for now, you are here, at the harbor, where the city meets the sea, where the known world meets the unknown, where human ambition has built something beautiful and enduring. And you are welcome here. The night holds you gently. The city opens its arms, and your walk has only just begun. You turn away from the harbor now, walking into the heart of the city. Your footsteps carry you up a gentle incline, away from the water's edge, and toward the elevated ground where the royal palaces stand. The royal quarter rises before you, its palaces and gardens cascading down toward the water like a vision from a dream. This is where the Ptolemaic rulers have made their home, where Cleopatra herself walks these same paths during the day. But at night, The quarter is given over to silence and shadow, to moonlight and memory. Torches burn at intervals along the colonnade, creating pools of warm light separated by comfortable shadows. The flames flicker gently in the night breeze, their light dancing across the pale stone. Each torch is held in an ornate bronze sconce, worked with patterns of lotus flowers and papyrus reeds. The light they cast is golden and warm, inviting you forward, guiding your way through the elegant architecture. The street is paved with smooth stones, fitted so precisely that you can barely feel the seams beneath your feet. The craftsmanship is extraordinary. Each stone has been cut and placed with such care that they form an almost seamless surface. Columns line your path on both sides, their capitals carved with acanthus leaves and lotus flowers, with palm fronds and grape clusters. Each one is a masterpiece of the sculptor's art, though there are hundreds of them, stretching into the darkness ahead and behind. The columns create a rhythm as you walk, passing from one to the next, a measured progression deeper into the quarter. The shadows between the columns are deep and cool, while the spaces lit by torches are warm and golden. You move between these zones of light and dark, experiencing the contrast, feeling the temperature change subtly as you pass from shadow into light and back into shadow again. Above, the columns support a roof structure that creates a covered walkway, protecting visitors from sun by day and creating an intimate space at night. You pass through a gateway into one of the palace gardens, and everything changes. The stone gives way to soft earth beneath your feet. Here, the air is different, transformed by the presence of growing things. It is perfumed with night-blooming flowers, jasmine and lotus, herbs and roses, and other scents you cannot quite identify. The fragrance is subtle, not overwhelming, like a memory of a garden rather than the garden itself. It changes as you move through the space, growing stronger near certain plantings, fading in open areas, then returning in different combinations as you encounter different flowers. The garden is carefully designed, though at night you can only perceive its structure dimly. Paths wind between planted beds. Hedges create walls and rooms within the larger space. Trees stand like sentinels, their branches spreading overhead to create canopies of leaves. Everything has been placed with intention, creating a space that feels both natural and refined, wild and tamed, spontaneous and planned. A fountain plays somewhere nearby, its water falling in a steady, musical pattern. The sound draws you forward like a thread, pulling you through the darkness. You follow the sound through the shadows, past pruned hedges shaped into geometric forms, past small statuary that appears suddenly in the torchlight, a nymph pouring water from a jar, a sphinx regarding you with enigmatic stone eyes, an ibis standing on one leg in eternal balance. The fountain, when you reach it, is a simple basin with water flowing from a bronze lion's mouth. The lion's face is stylized, noble, its mane worked in detailed curls. The water streams steadily from between its jaws, falling into the basin below with a sound that is both constant and ever-changing. Moonlight catches the falling water, making it look like liquid silver, like a stream of molten metal pouring endlessly from the lion's mouth. The water in the basin is dark, reflecting the sky above, so that stars seem to float on its surface. You sit on the fountain's marble edge for a while. The stone is cool now, pleasant against your skin after absorbing heat all day and releasing it slowly into the night. The marble is smooth, polished by time and weather and the touch of countless hands. You trail your fingers in the water, feeling its coolness, its clarity. The water's song fills the space around you, creating a sphere of sound within which you rest. It is joined by the distant murmur of the sea, still audible even here in the garden, and by the whisper of leaves stirred by the gentle breeze that moves through the trees. Sitting here, you become aware of other sounds in the garden. The chirp of crickets hidden in the grass, the rustle of some small creature moving through the underbrush, the soft hoot of an owl perched somewhere high in the branches above. These sounds do not disturb the peace, they deepen it, adding layers of life to the quiet night. When you rise and continue, your path takes you past sleeping flower beds where blooms are closed for the night, their petals folded inward, waiting for the sun's return. You pass through an arbor heavy with vines, its framework creating a tunnel of greenery overhead. Grapes hang in shadowed clusters, waiting for harvest. The fruit is heavy and ripe. You can sense it even in the darkness. Your fingers brush the leaves as you pass, and they are cool and smooth, slightly dusty with the residue of the day. The path opens into a wider space, and you find yourself beside a reflecting pool. The water is perfectly still, like a sheet of dark glass laid on the earth. It reflects the sky so perfectly that you seem to be looking down into infinite depth, into another universe where stars shine beneath your feet. The trees around the pool are doubled in the reflection, creating a symmetry that is both peaceful and slightly uncanny. You walk slowly around the pool's edge, watching the reflections shift and reform with each change in your perspective. Near the pool, a bench sits beneath an ancient olive tree. The tree's trunk is thick and gnarled, twisted by centuries of growth. Its branches spread wide, creating a canopy of silver-green leaves. You sit on the bench, feeling the wood smooth and worn beneath you. From here, you can see a portion of the palace itself, rising above the garden walls. The building is mostly dark, its windows like closed eyes, as though the palace itself is sleeping. But a few windows show the golden glow of lamplight, suggesting that some within are still awake. Perhaps guards on duty, or servants preparing for tomorrow, or someone who, like you, finds peace in the quiet hours. But you are not going inside. Your walk continues through the gardens, following paths that wind between flower beds and beneath the spreading branches of trees. You pass more benches, simple stone seats placed at intervals, each one positioned to offer a particular view. A vista of flowers, a glimpse of the sea through the trees, a carefully framed perspective of a statue or fountain. You pass ancient trees that have watched over this place for generations, trees that were old when the palaces were built, that will perhaps survive long after they have fallen. Everything is still. Everything is peaceful. The garden seems to exist in its own time, separate from the city beyond its walls. The night wraps around you like a protective cloak, soft and gentle. You are simply here, simply walking, simply breathing in this moment that exists outside of time. Your footsteps make no sound on the soft earth of the garden paths. You move like a ghost through this beautiful space, witnessing without disturbing, present without intruding. The scent of jasmine grows stronger as you pass beneath a trellis covered with its vines. The white flowers are luminous in the moonlight, like small stars that have fallen into the garden and caught in the greenery. Their perfume is intoxicating but gentle, sweet but not cloying. You pause beneath the trellis, breathing deeply, allowing the scent to fill your lungs, to become part of you. Ahead, the path leads toward a gateway in the garden wall, and beyond it, you can see the continuation of your journey through the sleeping city. But for this moment, you remain in the garden, surrounded by beauty, held gently by the night, at peace in the heart of the royal quarter. Your path leads you now toward the great Library of Alexandria, the most magnificent repository of knowledge the world has ever known. As you leave the gardens behind and enter the streets that surround this temple of learning, you can feel something change in the air. Even at midnight, even from the outside, even through walls of stone and bronze, you can sense the presence of all that knowledge, all those scrolls and books and tablets resting in the darkness. It is as though the accumulated wisdom of centuries creates its own gravity, its own field of influence that extends beyond the physical boundaries of the building. The street here is lined with statues of scholars and philosophers, the great minds whose work fills the shelves within. They stand in their niches, frozen in marble and bronze, their stone eyes gazing at nothing and everything. Each statue is positioned with care, placed to honor its subject while creating a harmonious rhythm along the street. The sculptors have captured not just the physical features of these thinkers, but something of their essence, their character, the quality of mind that made them worthy of remembrance. You walk slowly past them, pausing before each one. Here is Plato, his face serene and thoughtful, one hand raised as though making a point in eternal debate. The marble of his robes falls in perfect folds, each crease and drape rendered with extraordinary skill. At the base of his statue, an inscription quotes his words, though the shadows make them difficult to read. You trace the letters with your fingers, feeling the carved grooves in the stone, connecting across centuries with the mason who cut these words. Next stands Aristotle, Plato's student and rival, his expression more stern, more engaged with the material world. His statue shows him holding a scroll, one finger marking his place, as though he has just looked up from reading to consider what he has learned. The detail is remarkable. You can see the individual fingers, the texture of the scroll, even the pattern of his beard rendered in delicate chisel strokes. Further along, you find Euclid, the father of geometry, his statue adorned with mathematical symbols carved into the pedestal. Here is Eratosthenes, who measured the circumference of the earth using only shadows and reasoning. His statue shows him gazing upward, as though consulting the stars for their secrets. And there are others, some whose names you recognize, others who are unknown to you, but who clearly earned their place in this gallery of minds. Their presence is somehow comforting in the darkness. These are people who dedicated their lives to understanding, to questioning, to the patient accumulation of knowledge. They stand watch over the library now, silent guardians of the wisdom contained within its walls. The moonlight catches the contours of their faces, creating shadows that make them seem almost alive, almost ready to step down from their pedestals and resume their work. You walk slowly past the library's outer wall, running your hand along its surface. The wall is high and white, built from massive blocks of limestone fitted together with such precision that you can barely feel the joints. It was constructed to protect the treasures within, not just from thieves or invaders, but from fire, from water, from the natural forces that might destroy such irreplaceable material. The wall is thick and strong, but there is nothing fortress-like about it. The architects understood that while knowledge must be protected, it must not be imprisoned. The wall defines and shelters, but it does not forbid. Through an archway, you glimpse an inner courtyard. The opening is wide enough to allow you a view, but not to enter. The library is closed at this hour, its doors locked, its collections resting in darkness. But even from here, you can see the structure of the place. The courtyard is surrounded by covered walkways, and beyond those walkways are the rooms where the scrolls are stored. Thousands upon thousands of them, tens of thousands, perhaps hundreds of thousands. Every room is lined with shelves, and every shelf is filled with papyrus scrolls and wax tablets, with parchments and codices. The collection contains everything that humanity has learned and recorded. Mathematics and medicine, poetry and philosophy, astronomy and agriculture, history and geography, music and mechanics. Books from Greece and Egypt, from Persia and India, from every corner of the known world. Some are originals, written in the author's own hand. Others are copies, carefully transcribed by the library's scribes. The library has sent agents to every port, instructing them to borrow every book that arrives on every ship, to copy it, and to add that copy to the collection. Knowledge flows into Alexandria like rivers flowing to the sea. You imagine the scholars who walk these halls by day, reading and copying, translating and debating. They come from everywhere, drawn by the promise of access to this unprecedented collection. Some stay for months, others for years, others for their entire lives. They read the works of the past, they write works for the future, and in doing so, they participate in the great conversation that spans generations and cultures. Now they sleep, and the scrolls sleep too, their words resting in the darkness until morning light calls them back to life. The street curves, following the library's outer wall. The wall seems to go on forever, enclosing the vast complex of buildings that make up the library and its associated facilities. There is the main building where the scrolls are kept. There are lecture halls where scholars teach. There are workrooms where scribes copy manuscripts. There are living quarters for resident scholars. There are gardens where thinkers can walk and contemplate. The entire complex is a small city unto itself, dedicated entirely to the pursuit and preservation of knowledge. Your footsteps create a soft percussion against the stone, a gentle rhythm that measures your progress along the wall. The sound echoes slightly, bouncing off the stone and returning to you a fraction of a second later, as though the building itself is acknowledging your presence. Above, the stars will slowly in their eternal dance. The same stars that ancient astronomers charted on papyrus, creating maps of the heavens that are stored somewhere behind these walls. The same patterns that sailors use to navigate the night sea. The same constellations that have guided travelers since humans first looked up and wondered. A small plaza opens before you, a space created where two streets meet at the library's corner. Benches are arranged in a semicircle, positioned to face the library's facade. During the day, students must gather here to discuss their studies, or perhaps simply to rest between sessions of intense reading. You sit on one of these benches now, choosing one that offers a clear view of the sky. Tilting your head back, you gaze at the heavens. The night is so clear that you can see the texture of the Milky Way, that great river of stars that flows across the dome of the sky. The ancient Greeks call it the River of Heaven. The Egyptians see it as the Nile of the night sky. Whatever name it bears, it is magnificent. Countless stars too distant to distinguish individually, merging into that luminous band that stretches from horizon to horizon. You think about all the people who have sat in this spot, looking at these same stars, asking the same fundamental questions about the universe and their place in it. What is the nature of reality? How did the cosmos come to be? What are the stars, and how far away are they? Why does the sun rise and set? Why do the seasons change? These questions have driven human inquiry, for as long as there have been humans to ask them. And here, in Alexandria, at the library, scholars work to answer them, building on the knowledge of the past to illuminate the mysteries of the present. You are connected to them across the centuries, across the barriers of language and culture and time. You share this moment of wonder, this sense of being a small consciousness contemplating an infinite universe. The stars look down on you as they have looked down on countless others, unchanging and eternal, while human civilizations rise and fall like waves on the shore. The night air stirs gently, bringing with it the mingled scents of the city. There is the smell of bread baking in early morning ovens. Some bakers begin their work in the hours before dawn, preparing for the day ahead. There is smoke from dying fires, thin and acrid. There is the ever-present salt of the sea, carried on every breeze that blows from the harbor. But mostly, what you smell is the clean, clear scent of stone and starlight, of a night that holds no threat, only peace. You sit for a long time in that plaza, simply breathing, simply being. The library stands behind you, filled with all the answers that humanity has found. The sky stretches above you, filled with all the questions that remain. And you exist between them, a single point of awareness in the vast sweep of time and space, honored to witness this moment, this place, this perfect midnight stillness in the city of light and learning. When you finally rise to continue your walk, you move slowly, reluctantly, as though leaving a place of sanctuary. But the night is still young, and there is more to see, more to experience. The library will be here tomorrow, and for centuries to come, a monument to the human desire to know, to understand, to preserve what has been learned, so that future generations might stand on the shoulders of giants and see even further into the mysteries of existence. Moving away from the grand public buildings, away from the monuments to knowledge and power, you enter the residential quarters where ordinary Alexandrians make their homes. The transition is gradual but unmistakable. The streets here are narrower, more intimate, scaled to human proportion rather than imperial ambition. Houses press close together, their walls painted in shades that the night has reduced to variations of grey and blue and shadow. During the day, these walls would show ochre and terracotta, cream and pale yellow, but now they are unified by moonlight into a more subtle palette. The architecture here is different from the grand colonnades and marble facades of the public districts. These are homes built for living rather than impressing, designed for comfort and practicality rather than monumentality. They are typically 2 or 3 stories tall, with the ground floor often reserved for shops or workshops, and the living quarters above. The walls are plastered and painted, some decorated with simple geometric patterns or bands of color. Windows are small and set high in the walls, protecting the privacy of those within while allowing air to circulate through the rooms. As you walk these quieter streets, occasionally you pass a courtyard visible through an open doorway. These glimpses into private spaces are like small gifts, brief windows into how people live. You see fountains and potted plants, small private sanctuaries from the bustle of daily life. One courtyard contains a fig tree, its branches spreading wide, with a small table and chairs positioned beneath it where a family might take their evening meal. Another shows a collection of clay pots arranged along a wall, some containing herbs, others flowering plants whose blossoms are closed for the night. Everything is quiet now. Families sleep behind painted walls, their dreams mingling with the night air. Children are curled in their beds, their parents resting nearby. Grandparents sleep in their alcoves, their long lives continuing through another peaceful night. In some homes, someone still stirs, a mother nursing an infant, perhaps, or someone tending to an elderly relative, or simply someone who cannot sleep and sits awake, watching the moonlight through the window. A cat appears from the shadows as you turn a corner, watching you with luminous eyes that catch the moonlight and reflect it back like small lanterns. The cat sits perfectly still on a doorstep, a small sphinx in miniature, utterly composed and self-possessed. Its fur is dark, perhaps black or dark grey, and it regards you with that expression of absolute certainty that cats have perfected. You pause, acknowledging its presence, and it blinks slowly at you, a gesture of trust, or perhaps simply indifference. Then it loses interest and disappears as silently as it came, flowing into the shadows like liquid darkness. Cats are sacred here in Egypt, honored as manifestations of Botet, and they move through the city like minor deities, owning every space they occupy, answering to no one. The street opens into a small square, one of many that dot the residential quarters, providing gathering places for neighbors and spaces for children to play. A neighborhood shrine occupies one side of the square, a modest structure built into an alcove in the wall. It is painted in bright colors that are muted now by darkness, reds and blues, whites and golds. Offerings from the day still sit before the small altar. Flowers that are beginning to wilt, their petals soft and browning at the edges. Small cakes made of honey and grain, left for the gods. A cup of wine, its contents reduced by evaporation, but still present. The paint on the shrine is faded, but carefully maintained. You can see where it has been touched up, where devoted hands have restored color to surfaces worn by sun and weather. This is a holy place, tended with love by the people who live around this square. It might be dedicated to a household god, or to one of the major deities who watches over neighborhoods and protects homes. Whatever its specific dedication, it represents the daily faith of ordinary people, their need to connect with something larger than themselves, to ask for protection and to give thanks for blessings received. You pause to rest on a bench in the square. The bench is simple wood, weathered and worn smooth by countless people who have sat here before you. An ancient fig tree grows in the center of the square, its trunk thick and gnarled, testimony to its great age. The bark is gray and deeply textured, telling the story of decades of growth. Its branches spread wide overhead, creating a canopy that provides shade by day. Now, in the moonlight, those branches create intricate patterns of light and shadow on the ground, shifting slightly when the breeze moves through the leaves. The patterns are complex and ever-changing, like living lacework spread across the paving stones. The houses around the square are humble but well kept. These are the homes of craftsmen and merchants, scribes and teachers, sailors and shopkeepers. The people who keep the city running, who fill the markets with their goods and the schools with their children, who maintain the daily rhythms that make urban life possible. Their homes are modest but dignified, speaking of pride and care, of lives lived with purpose and attention. The air in the square is still and peaceful. You can hear the distant bark of a dog, somewhere in the maze of streets beyond. The sound is not alarming, just a brief announcement, perhaps alerting its household to some passing stranger or investigating some nocturnal sound. Another dog answers from farther away, their voices carrying across the sleeping city. Dogs keeping watch while humans sleep, maintaining their ancient pact with people. The barking continues for a moment, a conversation in a language older than words, then fades away. Silence settles once more over the square, deeper and more complete for having been briefly interrupted. Sitting on the bench, you notice details you might have missed while walking. A child's toy left on a doorstep, a small wooden horse, carved with love and worn smooth by handling. A broom leaning against a wall, waiting for tomorrow's sweeping. A basket sitting by a door, ready for the morning market. These small domestic objects speak of lives being lived, of routines and responsibilities, of the ordinary miracles of daily existence. When you rise and continue, you choose a street at random. They all lead somewhere interesting in Alexandria. This city is a maze of possibilities, each turn offering new discoveries. This particular street curves gently, following some ancient property line or natural feature long since built over. The curve is pleasing, creating a sense of mystery. You cannot see what lies ahead until you walk around the bend. The houses here have small windows set high in the walls, protecting privacy while allowing air to circulate through the rooms on hot days. A vine has escaped from someone's courtyard and climbs the wall beside you, its tendrils gripping the rough plaster, pulling itself upward toward the light it will find when the sun returns. Its leaves rustle softly in the breeze, making a sound like whispered secrets. You can smell the faint perfume of night-blooming flowers hidden somewhere in its growth. Moonflowers perhaps, or night-blooming jasmine, their petals open to the darkness. The scent is elusive, appearing and disappearing as the breeze shifts, like a shy spirit that reveals itself only briefly before hiding again. The scent follows you down the street like a benediction, like a blessing from the sleeping city. It mingles with other smells, the earthy scent of potted plants, the clean smell of plaster walls, the faint lingering aroma of evening meals cooked hours ago. Each home has its own subtle fragrance signature, created by the lives lived within, the foods prepared, the herbs grown, the incense burned. You pass more doorways, more shuttered windows, more walls that contain entire lives. Behind one door, you hear a baby crying briefly, then being soothed by a mother's soft voice. The crying stops, replaced by the sound of gentle humming, a lullaby as old as humanity, the universal language of comfort and love. Behind another window, you hear the creak of a bed as someone shifts in sleep, seeking a more comfortable position. These sounds are not intrusive. They are part of the fabric of the city, the evidence of life continuing even in these quiet hours. They remind you that you are not alone, that even at midnight, the city breathes and dreams, its thousands of inhabitants each living their own story, each contributing to the great collective narrative of urban existence. The residential streets wind and interconnect in patterns that must have evolved over time rather than being planned. There is an organic quality to the layout, as though the streets grew like pathways worn by feet rather than being drawn by architects. Yet there is order here too, a logic that reveals itself as you walk. Streets wide enough for carts, but narrow enough to provide shade. Corners that create natural gathering places. Walls that define private space while contributing to the public face of the neighborhood. You continue walking, moving deeper into the residential maze, turning left and right at random, allowing the streets themselves to guide you. Each street looks similar, yet subtly different. Each corner offers a slightly new perspective. And through it all, the sense of peace deepens, the feeling of being held safely by the sleeping city, welcomed by the night, accepted as a temporary citizen of this ancient place. Your wandering has brought you to the Temple Quarter, where gods from across the known world share space in this most cosmopolitan of cities. Alexandria has always been a meeting place of cultures, a crossroads where East meets West, where Greek philosophy mingles with Egyptian wisdom, where traders and scholars from every corner of the Mediterranean and beyond come together. And just as the city welcomes people from all lands, so too does it welcome their gods. Egyptian and Greek, Syrian and Persian, Phoenician and Babylonian. Each culture has brought its deities to Alexandria, and they coexist here in stone and bronze, in temple and shrine, in a harmony that mirrors the diversity of the city itself. The streets in this quarter are wider than in the residential areas, built to accommodate processions and festivals. During the day, during the great feast days, these streets would be filled with worshippers and musicians, with priests in their ceremonial robes and acolytes carrying offerings, with curious onlookers and devout believers, with the smoke of incense and the sound of hymns. But now, at midnight, these broad avenues are empty and silent. The only sounds are your footsteps echoing off the temple walls and the distant murmur of the sea, that eternal backdrop to life in Alexandria. The first temple you approach is dedicated to Isis, the great mother goddess of Egypt. The entrance is flanked by sphinxes that gaze impassively into the night. These are not the Greek sphinx with a woman's head and a lion's body, but the Egyptian version, lions' bodies with the heads of rams or pharaohs. They are carved from granite, dark and massive, and they have sat in this position for so long that they seem to have grown from the earth itself rather than being placed by human hands. Their stone eyes look past you, through you, focused on eternity rather than the passing moment. The temple doors are closed, their bronze surfaces gleaming dully in the moonlight. The bronze is worked with intricate reliefs showing scenes from the myths of Isis, her search for Osiris, her protection of Horus, her role as the throne of Egypt. Even in the dim light, you can see the artistry of the metalwork, the way each figure is rendered with careful attention to detail, each scene telling its part of the greater story. Though the doors are closed, you can see the flicker of eternal flames through the high windows of the temple. These are the sacred fires that must never go out, tended by priests who keep vigil through the darkness. The flames dance and waver, visible as moving light behind the stone lattice of the windows. Somewhere inside, a priest or priestess sits before those flames, feeding them, watching them, maintaining the sacred duty that has been passed down through generations. They pray through the night, holding vigil for all those who sleep, keeping the connection between the human and the divine. The street here is paved with large stone slabs, fitted so carefully that the surface is almost perfectly smooth. Each slab was quarried from distant mountains, transported here by ship and cart, then placed with mathematical precision. You can feel the slight warmth of the stone through your sandals, the heat stored from the day's sun, now slowly radiating back into the cool night air. During the day, this stone can become scorching hot, but now it is pleasant, comfortable, one more element of the night's gentle embrace. You continue along the temple row, and the next structure you encounter is a Greek temple, its architecture entirely different from the Egyptian style. Where the temple of Isis is massive and enclosed, mysterious and dark, this Greek temple is open and luminous, built on principles of proportion and harmony that the Greeks have perfected over centuries. Its columns are pure and white, made of marble transported from distant quarries. They rise toward the sky in perfect vertical lines, each one slightly swelling in the middle. a subtle curve called entasis that corrects for the optical illusion that would make straight columns appear to bow inward. The columns support a pediment above, its triangular face carved with scenes from mythology. The details are lost in shadow now, but you can make out the general composition. Figures in dramatic poses, gods and heroes locked in eternal action. This is a temple to Athena, goddess of wisdom and warfare, patron of cities and civilization, protector of heroes and patron of craftsmen. It is appropriate that she should have a temple in Alexandria, this city that values wisdom and learning above all else. You walk between the columns, your footsteps changing tone as you move from the street onto the temple's marble floor. The space here feels different, set apart from the ordinary world. There is a quality to the silence that is deeper, more profound. It is not merely the absence of sound, but the presence of something else. Sanctity, perhaps, or simply the accumulated weight of countless prayers spoken in this space. Even the distant sound of the sea seems muted here, as though respecting the boundary between the sacred and the profane. In the center of the temple's outer courtyard stands an altar, a simple rectangular block of marble raised on a stepped platform. Its surface is clean and bare now, washed and prepared for tomorrow's offerings. During the day, this altar would be covered with gifts to the goddess: flowers and fruit, honey and wine, small cakes and libations, the produce of farms and the work of human hands, all offered in gratitude or supplication or simple devotion. You approach it slowly, your hand trailing along its cool marble edge. The stone is smooth, polished by time and weather, and the touch of countless hands that have reached out, just as you do now, to make contact with this sacred object. How many prayers have been spoken here? How many hopes and fears have been laid before the gods in this sacred space? How many people have stood where you stand now, looking up at the stars through the open roof, asking for guidance or giving thanks, seeking meaning in a vast and often incomprehensible universe? The number must be beyond counting, a multitude stretching back through the years to the day this temple was consecrated and open to the faithful. A small garden occupies one corner of the courtyard, set apart by a low wall. You approach it carefully, not wanting to disturb the sanctity of the space. The garden is planted with herbs and sacred plants, carefully tended by the temple attendants. You can see the shapes of the plants in the moonlight: rosemary and sage, bay laurel and olive, herbs that purify and protect, plants sacred to the goddess. Their scent rises slightly in the cool air, released by the night breeze that moves through their leaves. Sage and rosemary, sharp and clean, cutting through the night. Bay laurel, aromatic and noble, the plant whose leaves crown poets and victors. You breathe deeply, drawing the scent of the sacred herbs into your lungs. There is something purifying about it, something that seems to clear the mind and settle the spirit. The Greeks believed that certain plants have the power to drive away evil spirits, to cleanse spaces and souls, to create boundaries between the mundane and the divine. Whether or not such powers are real, the scent itself is calming, grounding, bringing you fully into the present moment. Leaving the Temple of Athena, you continue down the street. There are more temples here, each one dedicated to different gods, each one reflecting the architectural and spiritual traditions of its culture. You pass a small shrine to Serapis, the Greco-Egyptian god created to unite the two cultures that share this city. His shrine is a beautiful hybrid of styles, combining Greek columns with Egyptian symbolism, a physical manifestation of cultural synthesis. Next is a temple whose architecture, you do not immediately recognize, perhaps Syrian or Phoenician. Its entrance is guarded by statues of beings that are part human, part bull, their stone faces impassive, their bodies powerful. The doors are decorated with stars and crescents, symbols of celestial powers. You do not know the name of the god worshipped here, but you can sense the devotion of those who built this place, who maintain it, who come here to pray. Each temple is maintained with care, each one a doorway between the human and the divine. Each one represents a different approach to the fundamental mysteries, a different answer to the questions that humans have always asked. Why are we here? What happens when we die? Is there meaning in suffering? How should we live? The temples offer different answers, different paths, but they all share the common human impulse to reach beyond the material world, to seek connection with something greater, something eternal. The Temple Quarter is a testament to Alexandria's tolerance and cosmopolitanism. In other cities, in other times, such diversity might breed conflict. But here, in this city built by Alexander's vision and maintained by the Ptolemies' wisdom, different faiths coexist peacefully. The Egyptian worships Isis while the Greek makes offerings to Athena, and neither sees conflict in the other's devotion. Perhaps they understand, in some fundamental way, that all these gods and goddesses are different faces of the same ultimate mystery, different languages trying to express the inexpressible. The night deepens around you as you stand in the Temple Quarter. You realize that hours have passed since you began this walk, but you feel no tiredness, only a profound sense of peace. Time moves differently in sacred spaces, or perhaps it is simply that you have stepped outside of ordinary time entirely, entering into a moment that exists in its own eternal present. The city holds you gently in its ancient embrace, and you are simply here, simply witnessing, simply breathing in the presence of the sacred. You linger a while longer, moving slowly between the temples, observing each one, feeling the different energy of each sacred space. Some temples feel austere and demanding, calling for discipline and sacrifice. Others feel warm and welcoming, promising comfort and protection. Each one adds its voice to the spiritual chorus of the city, and together they create a harmony that transcends any single tradition. Finally, you prepare to move on. There is more of the city to explore, more to witness in this magical night. But you carry something with you as you leave the Temple Quarter, a sense of connection to the countless humans who have sought meaning in sacred spaces, who have built temples and shrines, who have prayed and hoped and wondered. You are part of that great chain of seekers, linked across time and culture, all asking the same fundamental questions, all seeking the light that the temples promise. Your feet carry you back toward the harbor, completing a long circle through the sleeping city. The walk has taken you deep into Alexandria's heart, through gardens and streets, past temples and homes, and now the pull of the water draws you back to where you began. But everything looks different now. The streets are familiar yet transformed, as though you are seeing them for the first time, or perhaps seeing them with new eyes, eyes that have been opened by your journey through the night. You emerge once again onto the harbor front, but farther along than where you started. The perspective has shifted. The angle of the moonlight has changed as the hours have passed, and the shadows fall differently now. The Pharos lighthouse is closer, more immediate, its fire burning bright and steady against the darkness. From here, you can see the structure more clearly. The massive square base, the octagonal middle section rising above it, and finally the cylindrical top where the great fire burns. Even at this distance, you can feel the heat radiating from that flame, see the smoke rising in a steady column toward the stars. You can hear the waves more clearly here, larger waves breaking against the outer sea wall that protects the harbor from the Mediterranean's moods. The sound is more powerful than it was earlier in the evening, a deeper boom as the water strikes stone, followed by the rush and hiss of foam spreading across the rocks. The rhythm is hypnotic, each wave arriving after a pause, as though the sea is breathing, inhaling and exhaling in slow, patient cycles that have continued since before humans built their first boats. A fisherman prepares his boat for an early departure. You notice him working by the light of a small oil lamp hung from a post on the dock. He moves with the efficiency of long practice, checking his nets, arranging his lines, stowing provisions for the day ahead. His hands know every task without needing to think, guided by years of repetition, by a lifetime spent following the rhythms of the sea. He works quietly, not wanting to disturb the peace of the night, respecting the silence that belongs to these hours. He glances up as you pass, his face weathered by sun and salt, lined with years of squinting against the bright reflection of sun on water. He offers a nod of acknowledgement, a brief connection between two people awake while the world sleeps. There is no need for words. The nod is enough, a recognition of shared humanity, of the strange fellowship that exists between those who inhabit the night. Then he returns to his work, coiling rope with practiced hands, and you continue on your way, both of you alone, yet somehow connected by this brief moment of awareness. Some people in Alexandria never really sleep. Their rhythms follow the sea and the stars rather than the sun. The fishermen rise in darkness to catch the morning tide. The bakers begin their work before dawn, so that bread will be ready when the city wakes. The night watchmen patrol until sunrise. These are the people who live in the margins of time, in the spaces between day and night, serving the needs of a city that never fully stops, never completely rests. You walk along the harbor wall itself now, the sea directly beside you. The wall is wide and solid, built from enormous blocks of stone fitted together with iron clamps. It is wide enough to walk comfortably, though you stay mindful in the darkness, aware of the drop to the water below. The stone beneath your feet is slightly damp from spray, and you can feel the moisture in the air, taste the salt on your lips. Spray occasionally touches your face when a larger wave breaks, cool and fresh, like a blessing from the sea itself, a reminder of the vast power that lies just beyond the wall. Below, the water surges and retreats in endless repetition. The waves come from far out in the Mediterranean, generated by winds hundreds of miles away, traveling across open water until they encounter this coast, this wall, this moment. Each wave is unique, yet part of an eternal pattern. Each one rises and falls, advances and withdraws, in a dance as old as the ocean itself. Watching them, you feel yourself synchronizing with their rhythm, your breathing slowing to match their pace. The city rises to your left, a landscape of white and pale stone buildings climbing the gentle slope from the harbor. Structures are punctuated by the dark vertical lines of cypress and palm trees, and by the occasional warm glow of lamplight from windows where someone still keeps vigil. From here, you can see the scale of Alexandria, the sheer scope of it, spreading along the coast for miles. Even in darkness, even with most of its citizens asleep, the city is magnificent. You can see the great public buildings, the temple roofs, the palace complex, the library, all the monuments to human ambition and achievement that make this one of the wonders of the ancient world. The sky above is a dome of stars, clearer and brighter than they were earlier, as though the deepening night has polished them to greater brilliance. The constellations will slowly overhead in their eternal rotation. Orion the hunter strides across the southern sky. The Great Bear circles the North Star. The Pleiades cluster together like jewels scattered on dark velvet. These same stars have guided sailors since humans first ventured onto the water, the same patterns that ancient astronomers mapped and named, the same lights that will shine long after this city has crumbled to dust. You find a spot where steps lead down from the wall to a small platform, probably used for loading and unloading smaller vessels during the day. The steps are worn smooth by countless feet, their edges rounded by time and use. You sit on the steps, careful of your footing, and position yourself so that your feet are near the water. The stone is cool and slightly rough beneath you. The water moves just below, close enough that you could reach down and trail your fingers in it if you chose. And you simply exist in this moment. The stone is solid beneath you, ancient and enduring, a connection to the earth itself. The water moves ceaselessly before you, fluid and ever-changing, representing all that flows and transforms and refuses to be still. The stars wheel overhead, vast and distant, reminding you of the immensity of the cosmos and the smallness of human concerns within it. And you sit between these elements, containing all of them, the solid and the fluid, the earthly and the celestial, the temporary and the eternal. This is Alexandria at midnight, ancient and eternal, sleeping and wakeful, a city that has seen empires rise and fall but continues, adapted and transformed, yet somehow always itself. The Ptolemies who rule it now will one day be gone, replaced by Romans, then Byzantines, then others whose names have not yet been written. The city will burn and be rebuilt. It will thrive and decline. It will be conquered and liberated and conquered again. But something essential will persist. The spirit of this place, the idea of Alexandria as a meeting point of cultures, a harbor of knowledge, a beacon of light in the darkness. And you are here, a traveler through time and space, welcomed by the night, accepted by the ancient stones, held gently by the sound of the waves. You have walked through the city's streets and gardens, past its temples and homes, through its public spaces and quiet corners. You have witnessed it in its most peaceful state, when the crowds are gone and the noise has faded and only the essential remains. The lighthouse keeper climbs the spiral stairs inside Pharos, though you cannot see him. The great lighthouse is hollow, its interior containing a ramp that winds upward, wide enough for donkeys to climb carrying fuel for the fire. The keeper makes this journey multiple times each night, carrying wood and oil, tending the flame that must never go out. His is a lonely vigil, but a sacred one. He tends the light that guides ships to safety, a responsibility passed down through generations of keepers. His light reaches out across the dark water, a promise that harbor and home are near, that safety lies ahead for those who follow its beacon. You breathe deeply, filling your lungs with the salt air of the Mediterranean, with the ancient breath of the sea that has flowed across these waters since before there were cities, before there were ships, before humans walked the earth. You breathe out slowly, releasing everything you don't need to carry, worries and fears, plans and regrets, the weight of past and future. You release it all into the night, letting it flow away like smoke, like mist, like dreams dissolving upon waking. The rhythm of the waves provides a meditation, and you sink deeper into peace with each breath, each wave, each moment. The sound becomes everything, not a distraction from meditation, but the meditation itself. You are the breath, you are the wave, you are the moment stretching into eternity. There is nowhere else you need to be, nothing else you need to do. This moment is complete and perfect in itself. Rising from your rest by the harbor, feeling renewed by the time spent in the presence of the sea, you discover a pathway you hadn't noticed before. It begins almost imperceptibly, a gap between buildings that might be mistaken for shadow. But as you approach, you see that it is indeed a path, paved with smooth stones and inviting you forward. The path leads away from the water, away from the harbor's activity, toward a terraced hillside covered in gardens that rises above the city. This is a place of remembrance, a sacred landscape where Alexandrians come to honor their ancestors and contemplate the passage of time, to sit with memory and loss, and to find peace in the presence of those who have gone before. Stone steps, worn smooth by countless feet over countless years, lead upward through the gardens. The steps are wide and shallow, built for contemplative ascent rather than hurried climbing. Each step has been shaped by the passage of many people, their edges softened, their surfaces polished by the touch of sandals and bare feet, by the weight of grief and love carried upward. You begin to climb, taking your time, pausing frequently to look around, to breathe, to simply be present in this liminal space between the city and the sky. Olive trees grow on either side of the path, ancient trees with trunks that are thick and twisted, their bark deeply furrowed with age. Some of these trees may have been here before the city itself was founded, witnesses to the transformation of this landscape from wild coast to urban center. Their branches spread wide overhead, creating a canopy that filters the moonlight into shifting patterns of silver and shadow. The leaves shimmer with a distinctive quality. Their upper surfaces are dark green, almost gray, while their undersides are covered with tiny silver hairs that catch and reflect the light. When the breeze moves through the branches, the trees seem to shimmer and dance, as though alive with inner light. The path winds upward in a gentle serpentine, never too steep, allowing you to climb at a meditative pace. Small monuments stand among the gardens on either side, nothing ostentatious or grand, just simple markers and memorial stones, humble remembrances of lives that have been lived and completed. Some bear inscriptions in Greek, elegant letters carved into marble or limestone, speaking of love and loss in the measured language of that poetic tongue. Others display Egyptian hieroglyphs, those mysterious symbols that combine the practical and the sacred, each one a small work of art as well as a unit of meaning. Still others show inscriptions in languages you don't recognize, Aramaic perhaps, or Phoenician, or other scripts from distant lands. Alexandria has always been a meeting place of cultures, and even here, in this place of memory and mourning, that diversity is honored and preserved. People from every corner of the known world have made Alexandria their home, and when their lives ended, they were laid to rest here, on this hillside overlooking the city and the sea. The monuments speak of merchants who traveled far and died far from their birthplaces, of scholars who came to study at the library and never left, of sailors who made their final port here, of families who built their lives in this cosmopolitan city. You follow the winding path upward, pausing occasionally to rest on stone benches placed at intervals along the way. Each bench is positioned with care, placed to offer a particular view or to mark a natural resting point in the ascent. The benches themselves are simple, rectangular blocks of stone, sometimes plain, sometimes carved with simple decorative motifs. You sit on one that faces back toward the harbor, and from here, you can see the lighthouse burning bright in the distance, its beams sweeping across the dark water, a symbol of guidance and hope even in this place dedicated to those who have finished their journeys. Each bench offers a different view as you continue upward. One looks out over a reflecting pool, its surface perfectly still, mirroring the stars above so perfectly that you cannot tell which is reflection and which is reality. Another provides a vista of a bed of white flowers, lilies perhaps, or night-blooming jasmine, their pale petals luminous in the darkness, their fragrance sweet and slightly melancholy, appropriate for this place of beautiful sadness. Yet another bench frames a view of a statue, a figure of a young woman holding a dove, her stone face expressing a sorrow that is somehow also peaceful, accepting, transcendent. Night-blooming flowers open all around you as you continue climbing. Their pale petals seem to glow with captured moonlight, as though they have absorbed the silver radiance and now release it in a softer, more diffuse form. The fragrance they release is subtle and sweet, designed to comfort rather than overwhelm. These flowers understand their role in this sacred landscape. They bloom in darkness to honor those who have passed into the greater darkness, and their scent offers solace to those who mourn. The perfume changes subtly as you move through the gardens, different species blooming at different elevations, creating a symphony of scents that accompanies your ascent. Bees sleep in the closed flowers that bloom by day, tucked away in folded petals, waiting for the sun's return. You can imagine them there, dozens of bees in each flower, their bodies perfectly still, suspended in that state between waking and sleeping that insects inhabit. When dawn comes, they will emerge and resume their work, but for now they rest, and the night belongs to different pollinators. Moths with pale wings that flutter silently between blossoms, drawn by scent rather than sight. A grove of cypress trees stands at one of the higher terraces, and you enter their shadow gratefully, feeling the temperature drop slightly as you pass beneath their branches. The trees are tall and dark, their forms distinctly vertical, pointing toward the heavens like natural obelisks or silent prayers made visible. Cypress trees have been associated with death and mourning since ancient times. Their evergreen nature symbolizes eternal life, while their dark color and solemn form express the gravity of loss. They sway slightly in the breeze, creating a soft susurration, a gentle rustling that sounds almost like distant voices, like whispered conversations in a language just beyond comprehension. In the center of the grove, a spring bubbles from the ground, emerging from a crack in the limestone bedrock, where water that fell as rain on distant mountains finally finds its way to the surface. The water fills a small basin carved from stone, then overflows in a steady stream that runs into a channel carved to carry it down the hillside, bringing life and moisture to the gardens below. The sound of the spring is crystalline and pure, each bubble and ripple creating its own note in a complex, ever-changing melody. It is the sound of water finding its way, of persistence and patience, of the eternal cycle of rain and flow and evaporation and rain again. You cup your hands and drink from the spring. The water is cold and sweet, tasting of stone and earth and distance. It has traveled through darkness to get here, filtered through layers of rock, purified by its long journey, and now it offers itself to you, quenching thirst you didn't know you had. You drink deeply, feeling the cold water trace a path down your throat, spreading coolness through your body, refreshing you, renewing you. Sitting beside the spring, You notice how the stars are visible through the cypress branches, framed and reframed by the gentle movement of the trees. Each gap between branches becomes a window to infinity, showing you pieces of the cosmos in turn. As the branches sway, different stars come into view and disappear again, creating a slow kaleidoscope of celestial light. You could sit here for hours, watching this subtle performance, this collaboration between earth and sky, between the rooted and the eternal. The city is visible below, spread out like a map made of light and shadow. From this elevation, you can see the organization of it with perfect clarity. The great boulevards running perpendicular to each other, dividing the city into orderly districts, the density of the residential quarters where buildings cluster together, the open spaces of temples and forums and markets, the thin line of the harbor with its protective walls. It is a city built with intention, planned and executed with remarkable vision. You can see the hand of Alexander in its layout, his dream of a city that would be the greatest in the world, a dream realized by the Ptolemies who came after him. The lighthouse is clearly visible from here, its fire burning bright and steady, sending its beam out across the dark water. Even at this distance, you can see the smoke rising from the great flame, a dark column against the star-filled sky. The lighthouse serves as an anchor for your gaze, a fixed point around which everything else arranges itself. It is a reminder of human ingenuity and ambition, of the drive to create monuments that outlast their creators, to build things that serve purposes beyond individual lifetimes. You remain in the grove for a while, just being present. The spring continues its eternal song, water flowing over stone, bubbling and splashing in its basin before continuing its journey downward. The cypress trees stand in silent witness, their branches swaying gently, creating that soft susurration that might be wind or might be something more. And you, a temporary visitor to this ancient moment, a traveler through time who has somehow found yourself in this place, you find yourself perfectly at peace. This hillside has absorbed so much human emotion over the centuries: grief and love, loss and acceptance, sorrow and hope. All those feelings have soaked into the earth, have been absorbed by the olive trees and the cypress, have dissolved into the water of the spring. And now the place gives back a distilled essence of peace, offering comfort to all who come here seeking it. The dead are at rest below, the living are at rest within the city, and you are at rest here, in this garden between earth and sky, between past and present, between sorrow and joy. The night holds you gently. The spring sings its quiet song. The cypress trees sway and whisper, and you breathe, slowly and deeply, filling yourself with the cool air, with the scent of flowers and herbs, with the peace that pervades this sacred place. Descending from the gardens, following the gentle slope back toward the city proper, you find yourself in a different part of Alexandria, a quarter you haven't yet explored. This is the Street of Artisans, where craftspeople have their workshops and homes, where the makers and builders of the city live and work. The transition from the sacred hillside to this working neighborhood is gradual, natural, as though the city understands that contemplation and creation are connected, that both are essential to human life. Even at this hour, even with the workshops closed and silent, you can smell the distinctive scents of their trades lingering in the air. There is the rich, earthy smell of leather, tanned and worked and oiled until it becomes supple and strong. The clean, sharp scent of fresh wood shavings, cedar and pine, acacia and oak, wood that has been cut and planed and shaped. The metallic tang of bronze and iron, the residue of forge fires and hammer work. The chalky, mineral smell of clay, both raw and fired, the basic substance that potters transform into vessels of beauty and utility. These scents are not strong or unpleasant. They have had hours to diffuse and blend with the night air. They are more like memories of the day's work, ghosts of labor that linger after the laborers have gone home. But they speak volumes about the life of this street, about the skilled hands that work here, about the transformation of raw materials into finished goods that happens daily in these modest buildings. The workshops are closed now, their shutters drawn and doors locked. But you can see into them through the windows, through the gaps in the shutters, glimpsing the tools and materials of each trade. The workshops are not just places of business, they are also homes. Most craftspeople live above or behind their workspaces, their lives intimately connected to their trades. You can imagine them during the day, the potter at his wheel, his hands covered in wet clay, his foot pumping the pedal that keeps the wheel spinning, his complete attention focused on the vessel taking shape beneath his fingers. The weaver at her loom, her shuttle flying back and forth, creating patterns that exist first in her mind and then gradually appear in the fabric she creates. The metalsmith at his forge, heating bronze until it glows, then hammering it against the anvil, each strike deliberate and precise, shaping the formless into form. You pass a woodworker's shop, its window displaying examples of his craft. Even through the glass, even in the dim moonlight that filters into the interior, you can see the quality of the work. There are small boxes with intricate inlays, different woods fitted together in geometric patterns or flowing designs, each piece cut to fit perfectly with its neighbors. There are furniture legs carved with acanthus leaves, the classical motif rendered with such skill that the stone leaves seem ready to unfurl and grow. There are decorative panels designed for wealthy homes, carved with scenes of daily life or mythological subjects, each figure rendered with careful attention to proportion and detail. Even through the window, through the faint barrier of glass, you can smell the wood, cedar and sandalwood, precious woods brought from distant lands, their scent exotic and expensive. Cedar from the mountains of Lebanon, where great forests have supplied timber to Mediterranean civilizations for thousands of years. Sandalwood from even farther away, from India perhaps, its scent sweet and slightly spicy, a luxury that only the wealthy can afford. The workshop is filled with the accumulated fragrance of years of work, the oils and resins in the wood released by cutting and shaping, creating an atmosphere that is both pleasant and purposeful. Next is a jeweler's workshop, and here the security is more evident. The window is smaller, more heavily shuttered, protected by iron bars worked into decorative patterns that serve both aesthetic and practical purposes. But you can see through the gaps, can see the gleam of gold in the moonlight catching a bracelet or a ring, and what might be the sparkle of gems, garnets or emeralds, pearls or sapphires, stones that have been cut and polished and set into precious metal. Alexandria's craftsmen are renowned throughout the Mediterranean world for the quality of their work. Jewelry made here finds its way into the treasure rooms of kings, adorns the necks and wrists and fingers of queens, serves as offerings in temples across the known world. The craftsmen who work here have learned their trades through years of apprenticeship, mastering techniques passed down through generations, adding their own innovations and refinements, and then passing that accumulated knowledge onto their own apprentices. It is a chain of skill and knowledge that stretches back through time, each generation building on what came before. The street curves gently, and you come to a workshop that makes glass. This is a craft for which Alexandria is particularly famous. Roman writers will someday praise Alexandrian glass as the finest in the world. And though that future is still to come, already the artisans here are creating works of extraordinary delicacy and beauty. Vessels sit in the window, some colored, deep blues and rich purples, vibrant greens and warm ambers. The colors achieved by adding different minerals to the molten glass. Others are clear, transparent as water, requiring even greater skill to produce. All of them catch and transform the moonlight in different ways. The colored vessels glow softly, as though lit from within, each one creating its own particular hue. The clear vessels seem to capture the moonlight and hold it, creating points of brilliance that draw the eye. Some vessels are decorated with applied trails of glass in contrasting colors, creating patterns that spiral around the body of the vase or bowl. Others are plain, relying on their form alone for beauty. Simple shapes rendered with such purity of line that they need no further ornament. A bread oven occupies the ground floor of the next building, and though it is late or early, depending on how you reckon time, you can feel the warmth radiating through the wall as you pass. The baker has already begun his work, rising in the darkest part of the night to kindle the fire that will bake the bread the city needs. Soon, very soon, the smell of baking bread will begin to fill this street and the streets beyond, that most fundamental and comforting of aromas, the smell of civilization itself, of grain transformed by fire into the staff of life. You notice a small shrine tucked into a niche between two buildings, easy to miss if you weren't paying attention. It's dedicated to Hephaestus, the Greek god of craftsmen and fire, patron of all those who work with their hands and transform raw materials into finished goods. The shrine is simple, a small stone platform with a bronze figure of the god, shown as he is always depicted, with his muscular arms and his strong hands, the hands of a maker. Someone has left a tool as an offering, a small hammer, well used and carefully maintained, its wooden handle smooth from years of gripping, its iron head shaped by thousands of strikes against metal. The offering speaks of respect for the work itself, for the skill that goes into even the simplest act of making. The craftsman who left this hammer is honoring not just the god, but the craft, acknowledging that there is something sacred in the act of creation, something that connects the human maker to the divine maker, the craftsman to the creator of the world itself. The street widens into a small plaza where artisans must gather during the day, perhaps to display their wares or simply to talk shop with their colleagues, to discuss techniques and share knowledge, to gossip and joke and participate in the social life of their community. A large plane tree grows in the center, ancient and massive, its trunk so thick that it would take several people joining hands to encircle it. Its branches spread wide overhead, creating a canopy that would provide welcome shade during the heat of the day. At night, those same branches create a complex pattern of shadows above you, a natural architecture that complements the human architecture surrounding the plaza. You sit on the edge of a fountain in the plaza. It's a simple fountain, functional rather than decorative, but pleasing in its proportions nonetheless. The water flows steadily from a bronze spout shaped like a lion's head, a common motif, but one that never grows tired. The water splashes into the basin below, creating that familiar music of falling water, that sound that somehow manages to be both constant and ever-changing, the same yet always different. You listen to its voice while gazing up through the plane tree's branches at the stars beyond, those patient witnesses to all human endeavor. This is a working neighborhood, without the grandeur of the palace quarter or the sanctity of the temple district. But there is dignity here, and purpose, and a kind of beauty that comes from utility and honest labor. These are the people who make civilization possible, who turn raw materials into the objects that fill human life with both utility and beauty. They are the hands that build the city, that create its furniture and tools, its decorations and necessities, its luxuries and its daily goods. Their work will outlast them. The boxes and bowls, the jewelry and glass vessels, the carved panels and woven cloth. These things will survive their makers, will pass from hand to hand, will serve purposes their creators never imagined. Some will end up in museums in distant futures, labeled and displayed, preserved as examples of ancient craftsmanship. Others will simply wear out and disappear, returning to the earth from which their materials came. But in this moment, they exist as testaments to human skill and creativity, to the drive to make things, to transform the world through craft and care. Your wandering brings you to an unexpected discovery, a pleasant surprise in this night full of wonders. A section of the market that operates through the night, defying the usual rhythms of commerce and rest. It's smaller than the great daytime markets that sprawl across entire districts, more specialized in its purpose and clientele. The vendors here serve those who work through the darkness, fishermen preparing for sea, bakers beginning their day's work hours before dawn, night watchmen needing a meal during their long vigil, and others whose lives follow the rhythms of moon and stars rather than sun. Lamps hang from posts and awnings, creating islands of warm light in the darkness. Each lamp is a small beacon, its flame protected from the breeze by a glass or horn shield, casting a golden glow over the goods displayed beneath it. The light is warm and inviting, drawing you forward, promising human company and the comfort of ordinary commerce, even in these extraordinary hours. The atmosphere is quiet, fundamentally different from the chaos of the day markets with their shouting vendors and haggling customers, their crowds pressing and jostling, their cacophony of voices and sounds. Here, transactions are conducted in low voices, with nods and simple gestures, with the economical communication of people who understand each other's needs without excessive words. You walk past a vendor selling fish from the night's catch, the first fruits of the sea brought in by boats that departed in darkness and returned in darkness, following routes memorized over lifetimes of fishing. The fish are displayed on beds of ice brought down from the mountains during winter, stored in underground chambers lined with straw, kept through the hot months in caverns that stay cool year-round. The ice is a luxury, expensive and difficult to maintain, but it keeps the fish fresh, preserves them in the state they were in when they left the water. The fish gleam silver and pink in the lamplight, their scales catching and reflecting the warm glow. Their eyes are still clear and bright, proof of their freshness. Mackerel and mullet, sea bream and red snapper, squid with their tentacles carefully arranged, shellfish in woven baskets. The bounty of the Mediterranean laid out for inspection and purchase. Next is a stall with bread and simple foods, sustenance for working people who need fuel for their labor. There are flatbreads and round loaves, still warm from baking. Dates arranged in neat piles, their dark sweetness concentrated and preserved. Cheese made from goat's milk or sheep's milk, white and crumbly, or aged until hard and sharp. Olives in brine, black and green, glossy with oil. Nuts, almonds and pistachios, walnuts harvested from trees in distant groves. These are the fundamental foods, the staples that have sustained Mediterranean peoples for thousands of years, simple but nourishing, humble but essential. The vendor is an old woman who sits on a low stool, wrapped in a shawl despite the relative warmth of the night. The shawl is dark, perhaps dark blue or deep brown, woven from good wool and well maintained despite its obvious age. Her face is deeply lined, each wrinkle a record of years lived, of sun and wind and the passage of time. But her eyes are alert and kind, and when she notices you observing her wares, she nods at you with a slight smile, acknowledging your presence without pressing you to buy. There is dignity in her posture, pride in the quality of her goods. She has been doing this work for decades perhaps, occupying this same spot, serving this same community of night workers and early risers. Someone is cooking somewhere nearby. You can smell it before you see it, your nose leading you forward through the market. The aroma is enticing, grounding, utterly human. Onions and spices, garlic and oil, the fundamental building blocks of savory, cooking in every culture around the Mediterranean. Following the scent, you find a small food stall where a man tends a brazier, preparing simple hot meals for workers who need more than bread and cheese to sustain them through their labors. The brazier glows with charcoal, and on top of it, a flat pan sizzles with whatever he's cooking. The smell is wonderful. It speaks of home and comfort, of warm food on cold nights, of nourishment and care. You accept a cup of warm herb tea from a friendly vendor who seems glad for the company, who perhaps grows lonely in these quiet hours and welcomes the chance for human contact, for a brief conversation, or even just a shared moment of silent companionship. The cup is clay, rough but serviceable, fired in a kiln and glazed with a simple pattern. It's warm in your hands, the heat seeping through the clay and into your palms, spreading up your arms. The tea is fragrant with mint and other herbs you don't quite recognize. Perhaps chamomile or lemon verbena, dried flowers that release their essence in hot water. You sip slowly, letting the warmth spread through you, feeling it travel down your throat and radiate outward from your center. The taste is clean and slightly sweet, soothing and restorative. The market extends down a long colonnade. The vendors set up in the spaces between columns, taking advantage of the covered walkway that protects them from weather while giving them access to the street. The columns create a rhythm as you walk, passing from one pool of lamplight to the next, from one vendor to another. Each space is someone's livelihood, someone's contribution to the life of the city. Some vendors sell lamp oil and candles, necessities for those who live and work in darkness. The oil is stored in ceramic jars, and you can smell its distinctive odor, olive oil primarily, though some use other oils as well. The candles are simple tapers of tallow or beeswax, practical rather than decorative, designed to burn steadily for hours. Others offer incense and perfumes, luxury goods available even at this hour, because beauty and pleasure do not recognize the boundaries between day and night. Small cones of incense are arranged in wooden boxes, each cone carefully shaped and dried. Frankincense from Arabia, myrrh from distant lands, other resins and aromatics whose names you don't know. Small bottles of perfume sit in rows, their contents precious, rose oil and jasmine extract, scents distilled from flowers, concentrated essences of beauty. A merchant displays fabrics, even at this hour, even in the limited light of the lamps. Linen from Egypt, woven from flax grown in the Nile Delta, the finest linen in the world, so finely woven that it's nearly transparent, light as air, perfect for the hot climate. Silk that has traveled the length of the world from distant Cathay, following trade routes that cross mountains and deserts, passing through countless hands before arriving here. The silk shimmers in the lamplight, colors shifting as the fabric moves. Wool dyed in rich purples and reds, the purple achieved with expensive dye extracted from murex shells, each shell yielding only a few drops, making purple fabric worth its weight in silver. Even in the lamplight, you can see the quality of the weaving, the tightness and regularity of the threads, the richness of the colors that have been achieved through careful dyeing. The merchant handles the fabrics with respect, unfolding them carefully to show their drape and texture, then folding them again with practiced movements, keeping them clean and neat. You linger in the market, not buying anything. You have no need for fish or bread, no money in your pockets, no existence beyond this dreamlike walk through the ancient city. But you are here for experience rather than commerce, for witnessing rather than purchasing. The vendors don't mind. They understand that some people are here for community rather than transaction, for the warmth of human presence in the lonely hours, for the simple comfort of being around others, even if no words are exchanged. All are welcome in the night market, buyers and observers alike, those with full purses and those with empty pockets. A musician sits in one corner of the colonnade, playing a simple wooden flute. The melody is plaintive and beautiful, neither sad nor happy, but something in between, something that acknowledges both the sorrow and joy of existence. It's music for the night, for the in-between times, for those who are awake while the world sleeps. The notes rise and fall, weave and spiral, creating patterns in the air that dissolve as soon as they're formed. The musician plays with closed eyes, perhaps seeing the music in his mind, or perhaps seeing nothing at all, simply allowing the melody to flow through him. The music weaves through the market sounds, the low conversations, the clink of coins, the shuffle of feet, the crackle of the cooking fire. It doesn't dominate or demand attention. It simply adds another layer to the experience, another thread in the tapestry of the night market. As you prepare to leave the market, you notice that the sky is perhaps a shade less dark than before. Not lighter exactly, but less deeply black, as though the darkness is beginning to thin, to become translucent rather than opaque. Dawn is still hours away, but the deepest part of night has passed. Time continues its patient movement forward, inevitable and unstoppable, and you move with it, carrying the experience of the night market with you, deeper into peace with each passing moment, each step, each breath. Leaving the market behind, leaving the warmth of human commerce and companionship, you make your way toward the eastern edge of the city. The streets grow quieter as you walk, the buildings becoming less dense, the urban fabric loosening as the city transitions gradually into the countryside beyond. Here, at the boundary between the built and the natural, extensive gardens have been cultivated, places where Alexandrians come to escape the stone and crowds of urban life, to reconnect with growing things, to breathe air scented with flowers rather than with smoke and spices. At night, these gardens are nearly deserted, belonging to the moon and the night wind and you. During the day, They would be filled with strolling couples and playing children, with elderly citizens seeking shade and quiet, with scholars reading beneath trees, with lovers finding private corners. But now, in these deep hours between midnight and dawn, the gardens are returned to themselves, allowed to exist without the presence of human activity, peaceful and primal and pure. The path through the gardens is gravel, fine crushed stone that crunches softly beneath your feet. The sound is companionable, gentle, a reminder of your own presence in this otherwise silent world. It's a pleasant sound, rhythmic and steady, measuring your progress through the garden in small acoustic increments. Trees line the path on both sides, date palms with their distinctive silhouettes, their fronds spreading like fountains frozen in stone. Fig trees with their broad leaves and gnarled trunks, twisted by age into shapes that seem almost sculptural. Pomegranates heavy with ripening fruit, the red globes visible even in moonlight. Olive trees, their leaves creating that distinctive shimmer as the breeze moves through them, silver and grey-green, ancient and patient. You come to a section where the garden is more formal, more obviously designed and maintained, laid out in geometric patterns that please the eye and satisfy some deep human need for order and symmetry. Hedges are trimmed into precise shapes, rectangles and circles, spirals and waves, the topiary art of gardeners who see plants as living sculpture. Flower beds follow symmetrical designs, radiating out from central points, creating mandalas of color and form. Even in the darkness, you can sense the order here, the human desire to impose pattern on the natural world, to create beauty through arrangement and design. But soon the path leads into a wilder section, where the gardens shade into something more like a forest, where human intervention is less obvious, where nature is allowed more freedom to express itself according to its own principles. Trees grow more densely here, their branches interweaving overhead to create a canopy that filters the moonlight into scattered fragments. Flowering vines cascade from the branches, hanging in thick curtains of green and blossom, creating natural walls and barriers. The air is thick with the scent of jasmine and night-blooming cereus, those flowers that open only in darkness, releasing their perfume for the benefit of nocturnal pollinators, moths and beetles, bats and night-flying insects. The jasmine is overwhelming here, not in an unpleasant way, but in its intensity and sweetness. Each flower is small, but there are thousands of them, tens of thousands, their combined fragrance creating an atmosphere that is almost visible, almost tangible, as though you could reach out and touch the scent. It fills your lungs with each breath, enters your bloodstream, alters your consciousness slightly, making the world seem dreamlike and distant. A stream runs through this section, its presence announced by sound before you see it. The musical burble and splash of water moving over stones, finding its way downhill toward the sea. You follow the sound until you find the stream itself, narrow and quick, running clear over a bed of smooth pebbles. A simple stone arch bridges the stream at this point, beautifully proportioned despite its humble purpose, its stones fitted together without mortar, held by weight and friction and the skill of the mason who placed them. You stop on the bridge, leaning against the low parapet, your hands resting on sun-warmed stone that has retained its heat through the night. The stone is smooth, worn by weather and by the touch of countless hands that have rested here before yours. Below, the water flows steadily, catching the moonlight in flashes and sparkles, looking like liquid light, like flowing silver, like the physical manifestation of time itself moving past you. The sound is hypnotic, each burble and splash distinct yet part of a larger whole, a symphony composed by gravity and stone, and the eternal downward flow of water seeking its level. Following the stream, walking along its bank on a narrow path that parallels its course, you discover a pond where lotus flowers grow. The pond is larger than you expected, perhaps 20 paces across, its water dark and still except where the stream enters and exits. Lotus plants cover much of the surface, their broad leaves floating like green plates, overlapping and touching, creating a nearly continuous carpet of vegetation. The flowers themselves are closed now, waiting for daylight to open their perfect petals to the sun. But even closed, they are beautiful, mysterious, sacred. Each bud is perfectly formed, containing within itself the promise of the flower that will emerge when conditions are right. The lotus has been sacred in Egypt for thousands of years, a symbol of rebirth and resurrection, of the sun rising from the waters of chaos, of life emerging from the primordial depths. The flowers open with the sunrise and close with the sunset, participating in the daily drama of light and darkness, death and rebirth. The Egyptians saw in this behavior a mirror of their own beliefs about the soul's journey, about death as a closing and resurrection as an opening, about the eternal cycle that governs all existence. The path circles the pond, and you walk it slowly, stopping frequently to observe details that might otherwise be missed in haste. A frog croaks from somewhere among the lotus plants, its voice deep and resonant, announcing its presence and perhaps its territory. Another frog answers from across the pond, and then another, until there's a brief chorus of amphibian voices, each one distinct in pitch and rhythm. Then, as suddenly as it began, the chorus stops, and silence returns, deeper and more complete for having been briefly broken. Small fish move in the water, visible as shadows against lighter shadows, as movements more than forms. They swim slowly, conserving energy during the night hours, waiting for dawn when their insect prey will become more active. You watch them glide beneath the lotus pads, their forms distorted by the ripples their passage creates, appearing and disappearing like thoughts emerging from and returning to the unconscious. You find a pavilion overlooking the pond, a simple structure that provides shelter without enclosure. It's built in the Egyptian style, 4 columns supporting a flat roof, open on all sides to allow air to circulate freely. The columns are lotus-shaped, their capitals carved to resemble bundled lotus stems, echoing the living plants in the pond before you. Benches inside offer a place to sit and contemplate the garden, to rest and observe, to simply be present in this beautiful space. You settle onto one bench, choosing the one arranged to face the pond and the lotus flowers. The wood is smooth and cool, shaped to accommodate the human form, comfortable enough for extended sitting. From here, you have a sense of timelessness, of existing outside the normal flow of hours and days. This pond, these plants, this moon, they existed before Alexandria was built, before humans came to this coast and decided to create a city here. They existed when this land was wild and untouched, when only animals walked these paths. And they'll exist after Alexandria has crumbled to dust, after its monuments have fallen and its libraries have burned, after its name has been forgotten by all but scholars of the distant future. You are just passing through, a temporary consciousness experiencing a moment of beauty in the endless flow of time. Your life is brief, measured in decades rather than millennia, a single breath in the great breathing of the cosmos. But this moment, This exact configuration of moonlight and water, of lotus and frog song, of cool air and jasmine scent. This moment is yours. You are here to witness it, to experience it, to carry it with you into whatever future awaits. The night wraps around you like a comfortable blanket, neither too warm nor too cool, perfectly suited to your needs. The sound of water moving in the stream creates a constant background, a white noise that soothes rather than disturbs. The occasional croak of a frog punctuates the silence. The rustle of leaves in the breeze adds another layer of sound. And beneath it all, almost too faint to hear, the distant murmur of the sea, that eternal presence that defines Alexandria's existence. Your breathing slows to match the rhythm of the garden, to synchronize with the pulse of growing things, with the patient timescale of plants rather than the hurried timescale of humans. In and out, slow and steady, each breath drawing in the scented air, each exhalation releasing tension and concern. Your heart rate slows. Your muscles relax. The tight places in your body loosen and soften. You are held here, supported by the bench and the earth beneath it, cradled by the night, embraced by the peace of this ancient garden, refreshed by your time in the gardens, renewed by your communion with growing things and flowing water. You make your way toward an area known as the Philosopher's Walk. This is a long promenade, specifically designed for contemplation, for slow walking and deep thinking, for the kind of measured pacing that allows thoughts to develop and mature, ideas to form and reform, understanding to deepen with each step. The ancient Greeks understood that walking and thinking are intimately connected, that the rhythm of footsteps can help organize the rhythm of thought, that moving through space can help one move through ideas. The promenade is paved with white marble that seems to glow in the moonlight, as though the stone has absorbed the light of countless days and now releases it in a softer, gentler form. The marble comes from distant quarries, perhaps from the Greek islands where the finest stone is found, transported here at great expense to create this space dedicated to intellectual pursuit. Your footsteps sound different here, crisper somehow, more deliberate, each step producing a clear, clean sound that echoes slightly off the marble surface. The sound is satisfying in a way you cannot quite articulate, as though the stone itself approves of your presence, welcomes your passage along its surface. On either side of the promenade, statues of philosophers stand in alcoves carved into walls that line the walk. Each alcove is a small architectural space unto itself, with its own roof and columns, creating a frame for the statue it contains. The statues are works of art in their own right, carved by master sculptors who understood not just the physical forms of their subjects, but something of their inner essence, their intellectual character. These are not merely representations of bodies, but attempts to capture in stone something of the minds that once inhabited those bodies. You pause before a statue of Aristotle, the great systematizer, the man who tried to organize all knowledge into categories and hierarchies. His stone face is calm but intense, his eyes focused on something beyond the visible world, perhaps on the forms and essences that he believed underlay the appearances of things. One hand is raised slightly, fingers positioned as though making a point in eternal debate, as though in the midst of explaining some subtle distinction or important principle. At the base of the statue, words are carved in Greek. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. You consider this statement, letting its meaning sink deeper than the surface. It speaks of emergence, of how things combine to create something new, something that cannot be predicted from examining the components in isolation. You run your fingers over the carved letters, feeling the grooves cut into the stone by a mason's chisel. Each letter is perfect, cleanly cut, the work of someone who took pride in their craft. The stone is cool beneath your fingers, smooth except where the letters create texture and depth. This simple act, touching the letters, feeling them, creates a connection across time. The mason who carved these words is long dead, but his work remains, and through it, you touch something he touched, participate in something he created. The next statue depicts Hypatia, though she has not yet lived in the time your midnight walk inhabits. But in this dreamlike journey, time is fluid, and she stands here nonetheless, representing the future of Alexandrian philosophy, the continuation of the intellectual tradition that makes this city great. She will be a mathematician and astronomer, a teacher and philosopher, a woman who achieves prominence in a world dominated by men through the sheer force of her intellect and character. Her statue shows her holding an astrolabe, that ingenious instrument used to measure the positions of stars and planets, to calculate time and location, to map the heavens. Between the statues, benches invite rest and reflection. They are simple stone benches, unadorned except for their pleasing proportions, designed for sitting rather than display. You sit on one, noticing immediately that the view from here has been carefully considered. From this position, you can see a significant portion of the city spread out before you. The promenade is elevated slightly above the surrounding area, built on a gentle rise that provides perspective, that allows you to see not just individual buildings, but the relationships between them, the way each quarter connects to the others, the underlying order of the city's design. From this vantage point, you can see how carefully Alexandria has been planned, how thoughtfully its founders considered questions of organization and function. The great boulevards that run perpendicular to each other, dividing the city into districts, each district with its own character and purpose. The palace quarter with its gardens and grand buildings. The temple quarter with its diverse sacred spaces. The residential areas with their dense networks of streets and homes. The commercial districts with their markets and workshops. And through it all, the harbors, both the Great Harbor and the smaller Eastern Harbor, providing the connections to the sea that make Alexandria possible. The promenade continues, and you continue with it, drawn forward by curiosity and by the peaceful rhythm of walking. Each statue you pass represents a different school of thought, a different approach to the fundamental questions of existence. Here is Zeno, founder of Stoicism, his stone face expressing the equanimity and self-control that his philosophy advocates. His inscription speaks of virtue and accepting what cannot be changed, of finding freedom through understanding necessity. Next is Epicurus, whose philosophy is often misunderstood, who taught not hedonism, but rather the cultivation of simple pleasures and the freedom from anxiety that comes from understanding the nature of reality. His statue shows him in a garden, for he believed that philosophy should be pursued in peaceful settings, among friends, away from the chaos of public life. Cypress trees grow at intervals along the walk, their dark vertical forms contrasting beautifully with the pale horizontal expanse of the marble promenade. They are ancient trees, planted perhaps when the promenade was first built, witnesses to countless philosophical discussions and debates. They sway slightly in the breeze that always seems to move through this space, creating moving shadows that cross your path like thoughts crossing the mind. The shadows are long and thin, stretching across the white marble, appearing and disappearing as the branches move. You come to a circular plaza at the center of the promenade, a space where the walk opens out into a larger area designed for gathering and discourse. Here, a large fountain plays, its water cascading down through several tiers before collecting in a wide basin at the bottom. The fountain is both functional and symbolic. The water represents the flow of knowledge, the way understanding moves from one level to another, how truth filters down through layers of interpretation and application until it reaches practical reality. The sound of the fountain is complex and soothing, each level contributing its own voice to the chorus. The top tier produces a high, delicate sound as water first leaves the spout and begins its descent. The middle tiers create deeper, more resonant tones as larger volumes of water fall greater distances. The bottom basin produces a broad, encompassing sound, a fundamental tone that underlies all the others. Together, they create a polyphonic music, many voices in harmony, each distinct yet contributing to a unified whole. Stone seats are arranged around the fountain's perimeter, positioned in a semicircle, creating a natural amphitheater or discussion space. You can imagine the debates that must occur here during the day. Passionate arguments about the nature of reality, careful reasoning about ethical questions, spirited exchanges about the best way to live. Stoics debating with Epicureans, Platonists challenging Aristotelians, skeptics questioning everyone's assumptions. The meeting of minds across cultural and philosophical divides, the clash and synthesis of ideas that drive intellectual progress. But now, at night, the plaza is given over to silence and individual contemplation. No voices compete for attention. No arguments disrupt the peace. The fountain speaks its eternal monologue, and you listen, finding in its voice something that transcends language, something that communicates directly without the mediation of words. You sit by the fountain, letting its music wash over you, feeling the slight mist that rises from the splashing water, cool and refreshing on your face. The water's endless falling and flowing becomes a meditation in itself. Each drop a thought released and let go, each ripple a moment passing into memory. You sink deeper into peace with each breath, each cycle of the fountain, each moment that stretches and bends and becomes eternal. Looking up, you notice that the plaza is open to the sky in a perfect circle, the surrounding buildings and columns creating a frame for the heavens above. This was clearly intentional. The architects wanted to remind visitors that philosophy begins with wonder, with looking up at the stars, with asking questions about the cosmos and our place in it. The sky visible through this opening seems specially presented, as though you are looking through a telescope or viewing window designed to focus your attention on the infinite. The stars visible in that circle are the same stars that ancient astronomers studied and catalogued, the same patterns that philosophers used as examples when discussing order and chaos, permanence and change, the relationship between the eternal and the temporal. They will slowly overhead, their positions shifting imperceptibly as the Earth rotates, as the night progresses toward its inevitable conclusion in dawn. As your long walk approaches its end, as the hours of wandering through Alexandria's midnight streets draw toward their natural conclusion, you find yourself once more drawn toward the harbor, toward the water that defines this city's existence and purpose. But this time, your destination is more specific, more deliberate. You are walking toward the base of the Pharos lighthouse itself, that marvel of ancient engineering, that beacon that has guided you throughout the night, that symbol of Alexandria's reach and ambition and desire to illuminate the darkness. The great structure towers above you as you approach, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, a testament to human ingenuity and determination. From a distance, it appeared as a single unified form, but as you draw closer, you can appreciate its true scale and complexity. The base is massive, a square platform built from enormous limestone blocks, each one weighing many tons, fitted together with such precision that no mortar was needed. Above this rises the first section, also square, perhaps 300 feet tall, its walls tapering slightly inward as they ascend. Then comes the octagonal middle section, its 8 faces creating a more delicate appearance despite its substantial size. And finally, at the top, the cylindrical tower where the great fire burns, sending its light out across the dark water, promising safety and harbor to any ship that can see its beam. The lighthouse occupies its own small island, connected to the city by a causeway called the Heptastadion, 7 stadia in length, hence its name. The causeway is substantial, wide enough for several carts to pass side by side, built to handle commercial traffic during the day when goods must be transported between the island and the mainland. You walk this causeway slowly, savoring these final moments of your midnight journey, aware that with each step you are moving toward an ending, toward the completion of a circle that began hours ago at the harbor's edge. Water lies on both sides of you as you walk. To your left, the harbor is calm, protected from the open sea by the massive moles and breakwaters that Alexandria's engineers constructed. The water here is dark and still, reflecting the stars above with barely a ripple to disturb their perfect mirror images. Small boats are tied up along the harbor side of the causeway, fishing vessels mostly, their masts pointing toward the sky like fingers, their hulls rocking gently in the minimal swell. You can hear the soft creak of wood and rope, the gentle slap of water against hulls, the ancient sounds of boats at rest. To your right, the Mediterranean stretches endless into darkness, vast and unknowable, extending beyond the horizon to distant lands and other shores. The water here is different from the harbor water, more active, more alive, with waves that roll in from the open sea to break against the stone causeway. The sound is louder here, more insistent, each wave arriving with a boom and a crash, throwing spray into the air that catches the moonlight and falls back as liquid silver. The spray occasionally reaches you, cool droplets landing on your face and arms, bringing the taste of salt to your lips, reminding you of the sea's eternal presence and power. The causeway is paved with the same careful attention to detail that characterizes all of Alexandria's public works. Each stone slab has been placed with precision, creating a surface that is level and smooth, safe for foot traffic and wheeled vehicles alike. During the day, this causeway would be busy with activity. Carts carrying fuel for the lighthouse fire, workers coming and going, officials conducting business, perhaps even tourists come to marvel at the great structure. But now, you have it entirely to yourself. The only sounds are your footsteps echoing on stone, the crash of waves, and the distant cry of seabirds disturbed from their nighttime perches. Ahead, the lighthouse grows larger with each step, more imposing, more magnificent. You can see the fire burning at its top more clearly now, a great conflagration of wood and perhaps oil, tended constantly to maintain its brightness. The flame dances and leaps, never quite the same from one moment to the next, yet maintaining a steady overall brightness. Smoke rises from the great fire, a dark column against the star-filled sky, carrying sparks upward toward the heavens like prayers ascending, like human ambition reaching for the infinite. The light from the fire is captured and directed by an ingenious system of polished bronze mirrors, focusing the diffuse light of the flames into a powerful beam that can be seen for miles out to sea. As you watch, the beam sweeps across the water in its endless rotation, illuminating a path across the darkness, then moving on, leaving that section of sea to return to darkness before the beam comes around again. It is hypnotic to watch, this eternal sweeping, this patient repetition that never tires, never fails, never stops its vigilant watching. At the base of the lighthouse, you find a small plaza with benches facing the sea. This is as far as you can go without official business. The interior of the lighthouse is restricted to the keepers, who tend the flame, and the officials who manage its operation. But being here, at the foot of this magnificent structure, is enough. You feel its presence above you, solid and enduring, a monument to human capability and care. You choose a bench and sit, positioning yourself to face the open sea, the endless expanse of water that stretches toward horizons you will never reach. The stone bench is cool beneath you, solid and reassuring. From here, you can see nothing but water and sky, darkness and stars, the eternal meeting of elements that humans have contemplated since first they stood upright and wondered about the world beyond their immediate surroundings. The night has been long, but you feel no exhaustion. Instead, you feel renewed, as though the walk has stripped away everything unnecessary, leaving only the essential you, clear and pure and present. The city has shared its secrets with you, opened its arms, welcomed you into its ancient heart. You have walked through palaces and gardens, past temples and homes, through markets and along promenades. You have witnessed Alexandria in its most peaceful state, when the crowds are gone and the noise has faded and only the essential character remains. The sky to the east shows perhaps the faintest suggestion of change, though dawn is still far off. The darkness there is maybe slightly less absolute, slightly less profound, as though the night is beginning to thin at its edges, preparing gradually for its eventual surrender to day. But that transformation is still hours away. For now, there is still time. Time to sit and watch the sea. Time to feel the stone beneath you and the breeze on your face. Time to exist in this perfect moment between night and morning, between sleep and waking, between one breath and the next. The lighthouse fire burns steady above you, as it has burned every night since the structure was completed, as it will burn tonight and tomorrow night, and for centuries of nights to come. The keepers climb the long spiral ramp inside, carrying fuel, tending the mirrors, maintaining the flame that must never go out. Their work is lonely but sacred, performed in service to something larger than themselves. The safety of sailors, the prosperity of the city, the ancient compact between land and sea that harbors represent. You close your eyes and simply breathe. Breathe in the salt air, ancient and clean, the breath of the sea that has flowed across these waters since before there were cities, before there were ships, before humans walked the earth. Breathe out all concerns, all worries, all the weight you've been carrying, releasing it into the night like smoke, like mist, like dreams dissolving upon waking. The rhythm of the waves provides a meditation, each one arriving and departing, in an eternal cycle that measures time in its own way, by its own rules. This is Alexandria at midnight. This is the great city, city of light and learning, of harbor and haven, of past and future meeting in the present. And you are here, witness to its beauty, recipient of its peace, guest in its ancient embrace. The night holds you gently. The sea speaks its eternal wisdom. The lighthouse stands guard above. And you rest completely at peace, held in this moment that is both fleeting and eternal. The walk is complete. The circle is closed. You began at the harbor and returned to the harbor, transformed by your journey through the sleeping city. The Alexandria you leave is the same Alexandria you entered, yet you are different, changed by witnessing, opened by walking, quieted by the peace that pervades these ancient streets. Rest now. Rest easy. The night will keep you safe until morning comes. The lighthouse burns above you, a promise kept, a vigil maintained, a light in the darkness that will never fail. And you, traveler through time, you are home. You breathe deeply, and with every breath, you feel lighter. Slowly, the columns around you soften into glowing mist. The moon blurs into warm light. And once again, the drifting library gathers you back into its calm embrace. You return the book to its pedestal. Its cover closes with a faint whisper, like a page turning itself to sleep. You lie down in a cozy nook between the shelves. Lantern light dims. Your breath becomes slow and even, and the wandering library drifts quietly on, carrying you gently into dreams. Good night.